Good afternoon, students. Today we plan to revise some points which we have discussed already in the classes. And those are very important points. We are discussing now the characteristic features of the Indian Constitution or the salient features of the Indian Constitution. As a student of postgraduate classes, you are aware of the very fact that our Constitution came into existence before, of course, 1950, but it came into force from the date 26 January 1950. And by now you all know that it is a written constitution. But things to remember is that this written constitution contains 448 articles, 12 schedules, and 103 amendments. It is the bulkiest constitution in the world. As I have already told you that this is the bulkiest constitution in the world, and while framing the salient features of the Indian Constitution, the Constitution of India has taken many of the distinctive features from the leading constitutions of the world. Now let us discuss about certain distinctive features of the Indian Constitution. Number one, as I have already told you, that the Constitution of India is a written constitution, and it is a comprehensive document which contains detailed provisions regarding the organization and the functions of the different organs of the government. Executive, what are the different organizations of the government? Executive, legislative, and judiciary. And you know, this particular constitution contains the procedures to be governed in the case of to be followed in the case of the Indian government as well as the government of the states. There are certain also conventions, and I forgot to tell you at the beginning that while framing the Constitution of India, the framers of the Indian Constitution have taken primary help from the British Constitution and the American Constitution. You see, though in Britain we have seen that the Prime Minister is the head of the cabinet, we also see that in India also it is a convention that Prime Minister is selected from among the members of the majority party in Parliament. It is also a convention that the Speaker of the Parliament, of the House of Parliament, should be impartial. He should be above party politics. So once a speaker is appointed, he has to abandon his position in a political party. So second important point to be noted is that India is a federation. But the word federation has not been used anywhere in the Constitution. But the Article 1 of the Constitution says that India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. In short, we can say that the Indian Federation is formed on the Canadian model. India possesses a dual system of governments, as you know, the central government and the state governments. Our constitution clearly divides the legislative, administrative and financial powers. 3 points: legislative, administrative and financial powers between the federal government and the state governments. And you also know by now that in India there is a court called the Supreme Court, which is at the apex of the judiciary, and it is the final authority to interpret the constitution and to review the federation, to review the federal laws and state laws. And it has to do that from time to time. But if we notice minutely into the contents of the constitution, we will find that the constitution has strengthened the powers of the central government. The residuary powers belong to the center. The central government can make laws on the state's circumstances not in the ordinary circumstances, but in the extraordinary circumstances. Moreover, you know, when there is an emergency declared by the President of India, emergency can be declared by the President of India in certain circumstances. If President rule is imposed, then during emergency, the federal government even may control the powers of the state government. This is very important. That means the residual powers lie in the hands of the federal government or the central government, which can make laws even on state subjects, provided there is an extraordinary circumstances or there are extraordinary circumstances like emergency declared by the President of India. Now, let us discuss the third important point. We know that by now we can say that India actually is a federation with a strong center, and India has a federal constitution with a unitary bias that has been criticized or analytically described by some of the experts on constitutional laws.